Okay, May 4th, 2023, class number 517, Goal and Purpose, Part 2. This is going to be not so challenging. This is probably the easiest lesson that we'll ever experience. Because, as Kenny said last week, we're not learning anything. If anything, we're unlearning or tossing away stuff. And this is, the reason I say it's really easy is because how easy is it for you to say, oh, I don't want this no more and throw it in the trash? Or how easy is it to say, I don't need this. And you just toss it away. Because you know them well that you can't use an eggshell after you already cracked it open and fixed the egg. So you just throw the shell away. And so that's basically what you're doing. You're throwing away everything that you've been taught. Actually, it took me all the way to be 74 years old to understand that all of the stuff that I was taught, I already knew it before I was taught it. It's just I had been taught that I didn't know it, and so I started learning all kinds of stuff that included, oh, this is who you are. You're Michael Orr. You were 9 pounds or whatever when you were born, and you are, well, back then we weren't black. You colored, and you're gonna grow up and you're gonna do X, Y, da 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 da. Y'all get the picture. Then the next thing is they find out at 3 years old you can play the piano, but nobody taught you how to do that. But they didn't know that intuition is a part of intelligence, which is God, and it's the Father within that Jesus is doing the works. No, they had you going, and depending on what part of churchology your parents came out of by way of their parents in slavery, some of you are going to jump and dance and shout and roll in the floor. Some of you are going to be real conservative. Some of you, just dependent. And you learned it all from slaves out in the field. And so you have to just start throwing all that away because none of it is worth a heel of beans. You can't do anything with that. Nothing. Because God does not need human beings to do anything except be still and let God be God. That's all God needs from, I don't even like to use the word human being because it suggests mortality. It suggests that we're some kind of mortal, and God is converting us into something, but He's not, because God has always been and has always appeared as a being. That's what I am means, to be. So when God says, my name is I am, it's you intuitively know that God is God. You intuitively know that your being is God. Yourself is God. You can't be anything else. And I went through that little process of, you can't just telling people that they're God. And what came back to me was, yeah, but think about it. Jesus said, what, all authority is mine? So you go out here and preach the gospel. Kenny and I were talking about that yesterday. All these people saying I was called to preach. And as I said, as my grandson used to say, I'd say, I'm going to do this. Remember I told y'all last week, he would go, no, you're not. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what somebody needs to tell these folks. When they say, God called me to preach, I'm called to preach. Somebody should be there and say, no, you're not. Why? Because you don't know who you are. Jesus said, go out and do this. Why? Because you 12 got, 11. Judas Iscariot was gone. You 11 guys have been with me for 3.5 years. And you guys have the privilege of knowing that when I was 12 years old and my parents didn't know where I was, and they went off 3 days, I've always been just befuddled about how I could go off and leave Jamal and Shauna for 3 days journey. I used to always say, that can't be right, man. Maybe that's just they meant a short period of time. Maybe they went and didn't know that Jesus wasn't in the wagon. But they were gone 3 days journey and didn't know that he wasn't there. He was 12. They went back and found him sitting up there with the philosophers and the wise men. And what gets me is he looked at them and said, well, they said, well, how could you do this to us? Now, isn't that a typical human being going to blame somebody else? They're going to blame a 12-year-old. How could you play a trick on us like this? How could you do this? And he's looking at them like, what? You mean to tell me that you didn't know that I would be about my Father's business? And that's where we need to be. I'm always about my Father's business. Not this business of I'm going to make sure I get mine. No, I'm sorry. Mine with an S on it. I'm going to make sure. See, they owe, I'm entitled to this. What? I'm like, so from 12, this is what Kenny and I were talking about yesterday. From 12 years old until 30. That's 18 years of him totally realizing I am the Christ, I am the Son of God, and I am called to preach. And if you think about it, he walks into a church building, and they're all there, the big timers with the robes and all this kind of stuff on. And he says, they gave him something to read, and he turned to where it was written. I like when Kenneth Copeland said one time, he turned to where it was written about him. He opened it up and turned to Isaiah. And in fact, I have a book here that says that Jesus quoted from Isaiah more than any other prophet in the whole Bible. And he said that the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed, enlightened me to preach the gospel. And this is in Luke chapter 4, where he says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. And today he said, this Spirit, this message, this prophecy is fulfilled in your ears. And they wanted to kill him. They hadn't spent 18 years learning who they were, but he spent 18 years learning who he was. And then once they wanted to throw him off the briar cliff, he was able to get away from them. And they for another day. How could he just walk through the midst of them? They were trying to kill him, and he just walked right through the midst of them and kept on going. Because his consciousness was of such that it's not my time. I know why I'm here. I chose to go to the cross to do what? Hebrews 2:14, to destroy him who had the power of death. That is the devil. Now, he starts picking guys. He starts picking all these guys, one by one, and they spent 3.5 years with him. Now, after that, he's gone, and they start speaking the word. If you recall, in the book of Acts, Peter is up on the housetop, and it dawns on him that all manner of beasts come down and says, "Rise, Peter, slay." And he says, "No, I've never eaten anything unclean." And he says, "What God has cleansed, call not thou common or unclean." Now, if the voice says this to Peter, and he gets down and goes to Cornelius' house, these are people who are praying to know who they are. They want the Christ consciousness. And Peter goes, and Cornelius and his whole household are awarded with the consciousness of righteousness. They all have it in a place. And so then we have John, who's out there. He comes up with the revelation, now are we the sons of God. And somehow that got twisted into you got to go to church, and you got to, of course, you got to tithe to the church and make sure that they can stay in business. Not, I'm going to give a tenth of what my time, my treasure, my whatever, I'm giving because I'm grateful that I understand that God is the self of my being. Where would I be if I didn't understand this? And so some people don't have a tithe. Some people, back then they would do it. They had sheep and cattle, and, it's like I'm giving a tenth of this. And I used to always wonder, well, where do they, in the little temple that they had, where did they keep all these sheep and goats and some people? What if you had a whole bunch of chickens and and you didn't have a lot. I mean, you didn't have hundreds of priests, so it must have been that this part over here is allotted for God, and I'm giving it however when they need something. I got one here. You take this one today. You take this one today. It's like these are the people who were grateful to God that they were successful. And so, therefore, this is not something that's supposed to be organized so that I can build this humongous building with lighting effects and all these movie theaters, and we're going to have all this stuff, yet none of us are going to know who we are. But you just keep on bringing that money in here, though. You keep on coming every Sunday so we can go. We have 10,000 members. Yeah, but what are your 10,000 members doing? I'm called to preach. No, you're not. You don't know who you are. And until that identity is bestowed upon you, like the lady told me 2 weeks ago, I don't care what you say. I know I'm saved. It was all I could do not to say, saved from what, lady? It doesn't make any sense that you're sick every week or somebody in your family. And she was mad because I was talking to, as I said, her significant other about his brother. He was seriously wanting something to understand so he wanted his brother healed. And she just hopped up in the conversation. I know I'm healed. I know I'm saved. I'm like, okay, good for you. I'm glad that, I'm glad I didn't look at her and go, no, you're not. So, with all of that introduction, what is, as I said last week, the goal was what? God realization. This woman ain't no God realization, except she really does. She's just got so much garbage and trash piled up until she can't do. It's so veiled. She's like, I can't get rid of this. This is what makes me me. You know people like that? This is what makes me me. I'm this kind of person. This is what I am. Right. So you can't, your inner reality, real self is trying to say, in the words of Little Richard, shut up. That's what it's trying to say. The voice of God, which you are, your own voice, is saying to this tempter. See, this human nature is a tempter. It's trying to tempt you to be something that you're not. You're not really accepting it because of who you are, but that which you appear to be, which means it has choice, is choosing which battle it's going to fight with. And why would you choose to fight with a battle? And, this sounds like duality, but let me just make it clear. You are not choosing to fight with no kind of battle because you are in the Father and the Father is in you. And Son of God is one with the Father. But there is something about being in this world but not of it that chooses to the illusion of who you are not. Let's put it that way. It's choosing to fight with something, even though in Isaiah 54 it's as plain as the nose on your face. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Well, why would I fight with it if it can't prosper? Doesn't make any sense. So the I that I am is not fighting with anything. It is just, if it's fighting at all, it's doing like Paul said, it's fighting the good fight of faith. That's all. But because this apparent self, let's call it that, this apparent brain that and apparent human spirit that's trying to say, this is not who you. This is who you are. You're this person who's out here, as the man said on Facebook yesterday. We all make mistakes. I don't want to speak for yourself. We don't all make mistakes. We are the all, and the all does not make mistakes. So we have to understand something that's trying to get us off of our mark, and we can't because we can't be separated from God. There's no way that's not possible. So if the goal is God realization, then we have to realize an even deeper purpose than what I put last week. Other than experiencing all that God is, the purpose would be self-expression. Now, the self that we're going to express is the one self, the God self, omnipresence. Now, omnipresence means what? All presence. So what presence could be something different from God, all presence? See, you, the self, are the answer to all problems. I saw this one day. Lillian DeWater said, would you call a problem evil? And she said, of course not. You cannot call a problem evil because it's not. You know, it's somebody walk up to you and say, there's a problem. And your attitude is, well, okay, I am the answer to the problem. So if I am the answer to the problem, I also have to be the solution. The answer always exists before the problem. And the solution is baked right into the problem. In other words, let's give a positive example of a problem. And I'll make it as simple as possible. 2 times 2. That's the problem. And the answer was there before there was a 2 times 2. So if I am the answer, and 2 times 2 is the problem, is 2 times 2 evil? No. So the only thing left is what? The solution. And the solution is what? 2 times 2. Well, 2 times. 2 plus 2 is 4. So the solution is right there. How to get to 4 is already built in to 2 times 2, or 2 plus 2. Or how to get to 6 is, if I'm using 2, I'm going to add the 2 3 times. But that's already built in to the problem. Every problem has its own solution because I am the answer, and I can command it to show itself. It has to. That's the only reason why you had a teacher when you were in elementary school or junior high. You had a teacher because from that perspective, again, we're using something mundane like this natural world. You wanted to learn. You were told you had to learn, so a teacher had to be there. Here's the problem. Carolyn needs to read. Here's the answer. Carolyn is reading. What's the solution? Well, how can they preach except there be a preacher? And how can he preach except he be sent? There had to be a teacher. There cannot be a child who needs to learn to read if there's no teacher. So the answer was what? Teacher. There has to be. There's no such thing as not having what we need. That's what we call the Christ consciousness, the one self, the God self. And that God self already knows itself to be all that there is, the answer to all problems. There is no personal or personality, mortal, human self. There's no such thing. Now, I know it might say in Genesis 1, let us make man, humankind, in the Aramaic or whatever, but what's to say that God knew what he was talking about when he wrote that? Obviously, he didn't if he said, let there be humankind and let there be, let this human being, male and female. When John, who spends all this time with Jesus, comes along, in the very first chapter of his writings and says, in the beginning, in Greek that's principia, which means principle. You know there's a principle behind everything in this world. So let there be a principle. I am the principle. In other words, let you be aware that there's a principle of your being that's causing you to be all that there is. Now, the next thing is, in the beginning was the Word, the intelligence, the intuition. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So if God is the Word, then there is nothing that can stand in the way of the Word becoming flesh. The Word became flesh and dwelt among them. That's you, me, and as my mother used to say, the gatepost. Everybody is the Word made flesh, made manifest. So when I see you, I should be looking at the Word made flesh, not some human being with a different kind of a personality and a different kind of a self. There is no other self. The one self. That's what omnipresence means. So I am is the alone self. You reveal yourself to yourself. Isn't that wonderful? I am constantly revealing myself to myself. I am constantly saying about myself, I am this. And whatever appears to be necessary in my life, I am this. Why? Because I am consciously aware that I am the self and nothing can be added to me and nothing taken away. I am complete no matter what. I just need to do what? Run that around in my head over and over and over until my heart feels it. As I lay there this morning, it doesn't even make any sense for me to set my clock or my little phone to ring at 8:30 on a Thursday morning because I'm going to wake up at 8:15. And so I'm going to wake up before that. Why? Because I know I said it. I don't want to oversleep, but I'm not going to oversleep because I've already decided within myself I'm going to get up at 8:30. So that means I'm not going to just wake up at 8:30. I'm going to wake up early So I wake up at 8:15, and what do? I lay there and I think about there's only one self. That self is God. It has nothing to do with Michael or some human being that somebody told him this is who he is. So he leaves that alone. And he's laying there and he's meditating omnipresence, the allness that God is. There is nothing else. You can try to come up with something else if you want to. I don't care if it's a person, a place, or a thing. It's still God. God is the only self. That's what omnipresence means. And so, therefore, as you lay there, you start thinking about some kind of a problem. And the next thing, when you stop thinking, Joel Goldsmith says it all starts. He has a very powerful chapter in a book called Consciousness Unfolding, and it's called The Principle. And you're laying there, and you're thinking, as he thinks, everything starts with God. See, the problem is people start looking at the situation and start looking up to God. And he's saying, no, you start with God and start looking out from how God sees things. Well, God looked on his whole world and called everything very good, very beautiful. In Aramaic is what it says. So now you're laying there and you're thinking that God is this, God is that. And you fill in the blank however you want. God is love, God is life, God is joy, God is purpose, fulfillment, you name it. At the end of all of it, you stop and you get real quiet and you're being quiet and you're not thinking anything else. And when another thought starts trying to come in your head, you just say, no, I'm not thinking anything. I'm just going to be silent right now. And you're just thinking, I'm going to be silent, what have you. And along comes a God thought, the reality of who you are. And that thought says, this is already done. And so you get on up and you start going with your day. And I don't know, something changes the way you were feeling. You feel this little something on the inside that I've learned to call it confidence, faith. The word amen comes from the word hemanuta, which means assurance. And so you've dealt with that. Now you know omnipresence is all there is. And all of this intuitively by the grace of God, by grace and faith. Faith is based on assurance. It is the revelation of the infinite invisible. That's where we drop off. We start trying to get this stuff out here to look like something that it can't look like because it's already out here. And we try to turn it into something. We get sick. We want to get something. Well, did you get sick? What do you mean, did I get sick? Can God get sick? If God is the only self, can that self get sick? Can that self, oh, wow. Okay, so if that's the truth, then why am I still experiencing these feelings of sickness and what have you? Because, did you clean your whole house up in 5 minutes? If you had to clean out your garage, did you get it all done in 5 minutes? No. How long did it take you to throw all of the old teachings and all of that old stuff that people told you all throughout? I'm 74 years old. I got how many years of people telling me stuff? How long does it take to say no? And that stuff comes at you as a thought, and you just reject it. And that stuff comes at you as a thought. Well, if you don't do this, then boom. If you don't do this, then I'm going to do this to you. No, you're not. You ain't going to do nothing to me because I am omnipresent. So grace is the gift, y'all ready for this, of the Holy Spirit. And why is the gift of the Holy Spirit being given to me? Because it is the revelator. It is revealing unto me the self that I am. Now, that's just the one self. The next thing is the one mind. God, omniscience, all-knowing. We have the mind of Christ. That's what Paul said. Now, before Paul was called the priest, he spent 9 years learning who he really is. He spent 9 years at that, out in the Arabian desert. See, he comes to that reality. I have the mind of Christ. We are already in heaven. And where is heaven? In God. And where is God? In you. What do you mean in me? In the one self. In the one mind. There's only one mind. And God is in that mind. And heaven is in that mind. There ain't no I'm going to die and go to heaven. Forget that. Forget that. How can there be I'm going to die and go to heaven when there ain't no die and all there is heaven and all there is self? This is the only mind that exists. We cannot have a personal mind of our own. When I wrote this down, this really blew me away. Why would we want a personal mind of our own? Think of it this way. If somebody walked up to you and said, for no reason, you don't have to do anything. I'm going to give you $10 million. And you look at them and say, nah, that's all right. I'm going to go out here and earn it on my own. I don't think so. Start counting, dude. Start. Can you count the 10 million? Yes, sir. Okay, when you start counting and start piling it up right here, man, I got space for it. Don't worry about how I'm going to get it in the bank. You see, that always comes back to me when Morgan Freeman told Miss Daisy. So I'm looking for Mr. Bauer, a B and an R, right. But I ain't got to worry about what comes in the middle. See, that's the whole point. We get too caught up in the process. How am I going to get? You don't need that. You are the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. The middle will take care of itself. It'll be revealed. How? By grace. How I know it's going to be revealed by grace? Because I've been given the Holy Spirit. I don't need a personal mind of my own. For what? I got the Christ mind. So what do I need with a mind that needs to learn how to do something? Why? Why do we want that? I have no idea. Why do we assume we have it? This is the key to take no thought. Did y'all hear that? See, when he says take no thought for your life, it says it in Luke 12 and it says it in Matthew 6. Take no thought for your life. How you going to make it? That means don't take any thought at all for the process. Don't take any thought about that. Just realize I have made it. I'm not making it. I have made it. I am Alpha and I am Omega, the beginning and the end. I ain't got to worry about what comes in the middle. I ain't got to worry about how I'm going to make it. I've made it. Why? Because God has made it. That which is to be has already been. So, realizing the one mind as our mind, we accept that all things pertaining to sustenance and our heart's desire have been given by grace. It's all been given. All things are yours. That's what that means. What are all things? Everything that is necessary for this, for lack of a better term, appearing lifestyle. That's a better word for it. For this lifestyle has already been given. Where is it? In the Christ consciousness, in the mind of Christ, in God mind, the only mind that there is. We are our own answers. We are the giver and the gift. Now ask yourself this. What have I been giving myself? And most of the time I've been giving myself something that does not exist. I've been giving myself all of this stuff that does not exist at all. That's what Jesus meant when he said, you are in this world, but not of it. You don't do things the way they do things in this world. I can't imagine me running around trying to go and find the governor of Maryland and the senators and the congressmen, people from Maryland, trying to get them to do something about gun laws. That's ridiculous. They're not going to. As long as you have a majority of people that can stop it, that's what you're going to have. Because why? The love of money is the root of all evil. And what does that mean? The love, the total embrace, the money is my everything. When that is the consciousness of somebody, then why am I going to shut off millions of dollars in sales as long as I think, well, it ain't going to happen to me? You know, these people are going to shoot up each other in their own neighborhoods and what have you. That's not going to happen to me. And so these people are about, I'm getting money from the sales of all this stuff. And people are going to keep putting me in office if I stay with this. I don't care who's in office. I'm tired of that. I'm really tired of trying to say what's right. Why am I trying? What did Yoda say? There is no try, only do. Why do I care about trying to tell somebody what's right when I already know what's right? It says we are the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. I am right. I ain't got to worry about what comes in the middle. I am what's right. God's eyes are too pure to behold iniquity. That opens up omnipotence, all power, all authority. It's given me. That's in Matthew 28, 18 and 20. He says, go and preach the gospel to every creature. That means you've been totally absorbed in the understanding of who you are so long until he said, okay, well, now you're called to preach. He didn't say you're called to go into a pulpit and exact money from people and make them feel guilty if they're not giving. They're not giving when you're forcing them like that. You're putting a law on them, and you're supposed to be living under grace. And he's saying, I didn't call you to go do that. I told you to go. When you understand who you are, then you can help those who don't know who they are. And you don't have to go pontificate and preach and tell all these people, get a mass crowd and start trying to tell them. When did you see Jesus doing that? You know, they went up on a hill and he gave them what? The Sermon on the Mount? How many times do we see Jesus getting a crowd of people and going from town to town, preaching to hundreds and charging them fees? When did we see any of that? And so, therefore, we have to know who we are. And when we understand it, you know, this morning it was like, if you could make a wish, what would you wish for right now? I wish to experience totally the Christ consciousness. I wish to totally experience living out the Christ consciousness, the awareness that there's only one mind, there's only one self, there's only one power. And that power is my authority to share with somebody when they want it. But me going out here trying to force you into wanting it, you can forget that. It's not going to happen. Especially with people who think that they're rolling. Yeah, it's like I said to Kenny yesterday. I was like, just think about it. You got this upper 1% that's got the billion. I mean, just multiple billions of dollars. What's going to make them want to give you anything? Nothing. You know, this, I see guys always talking about, we're trying to leave generational wealth. I'm like, brother, do you realize how long people been? I said, the black people ain't even trying to give generational wealth. You know, if you find a few black billionaires, how much of it are they giving to their community? Because they don't realize anything any further than their own personal families. We don't even get into white people because they're the ones really with the majority of the billions. How much are they giving? You can forget that. It means everything to them. And so you are supposed to be understanding perfectly that your eyes are too pure to behold evil. That's Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 13. God's eyes are too pure to behold, to look upon evil, to behold iniquity. Your mind cannot look on and call anything evil. It can't. You say, well, I always say that's wrong. That's not you. That's a tempter. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Some other false mind that's trying to say, I'm real. I'm who you are. And the moment you reject it, that's not me because my mind wouldn't think like that. What is my mind? The mind of Christ. This presence cannot be evil. Judge not by appearances. So with what mind are we judging things as evil? what apparent presence is evil? Can there be evil in heaven? Now, you just think about that. If my mind is the mind of Christ, and heaven, it says God is in heaven. The all is in heaven. And heaven is within me. It is within me in the mind that I am, which is the mind of Christ. So please tell me, what mind am I judging evil with? Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. To me, renewing of the mind means by rejecting that there is any other mind other than the mind of Christ. What is the source of evil? Nothing. Evil has no source. So what is the carnal mind or the personal mind? What is the source of that? Nothing. It says the source of evil would have to be from the father of lies, which is the devil, who, by the way, as we said in Hebrews 2:14, the death of the cross by Jesus Christ destroyed him who had the power of death, which is the devil. I know that's what they mean when they say death is the final enemy, the last enemy. Because once you realize Hebrews 2:14, you will not be afraid of something called death anymore. You won't be. You can't be, because the mind of Christ has no death in it. Why would I be asking God to do something about that which does not exist? That was the power here. That hit me real. It was like, why are you asking me, which is yourself, by the way, to do something about war, Putin, the Chinese, this world period? Because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. That means you are the Lord of heaven because you are totally in Christ. In him we live, in him we move, in him we have our being. And if that's where we are, then what world are we looking at? Are we looking at the world which is invisible, the one which is within? Are we looking at the world that is God? Because God is the world. So if I am in him, what am I looking at in the mirror? Y'all ready for this? You are looking at your concept of your consciousness of who you got taught that you are. There is no such person who started out a baby and ended up old and died. There's no such thing as that. All there is God appearing as. You are as invisible as light when it gets dark. I told y'all, I shouldn't be concerned trying to say, well, maybe if I could have done something else, Cynthia would still be here and ding, 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 ding. You know how you go through all of that. And it dawns on me, remember that dream you had? The dream that you saw her at the bottom of a hill and you ran down there and you were going to try to hug her because you were so happy to see her. But she was a total body of light. And the closer you got, you couldn't even differentiate where she curved in and out. You couldn't see no face. You couldn't see anything but light. It's like you can choose to live a life all throughout this whole world, or you can be the light. Now, how can I say that? I should have looked this up, but I didn't, because it's spontaneously coming to me now. When Jesus looked at him and said, you are the light of the world. You are the light. You are enlightened. There's nothing about you that has any darkness in it. Why? Because God is light, and in whom there is no darkness. The light always is. So you can't do anything about something that's out here that's acting ugly. You can't do a thing about it. If God does not make evil, then it can't exist. So why do we appear to believe evil? And that's this thing Paul talks about, free will, choice. We appear to fall asleep. We appear to be hypnotized, dream. However, remembering who we are with one mind, we return to the Father's house. Remember the prodigal son? Even the servants in my Father's house have it better than I do. So omnipotence means I have all authority. I have the authority to tell this thing that's appearing to me to be error, be thou removed, be thou cast into the sea. And it has to obey. That's Mark 11:23. It has to obey. It doesn't have a choice. Remember when Jesus said, I could have legions of angels to come down right now and take me away? Pilate is saying, I have the power to give you your life or to take it. And Jesus is like, you don't have no power. You have no power. You think you are a human being. You think you are a mortal creation. How could you have power to do anything? I am the Christ. I have the authority to lay my life down and pick it back up. And he picked it up in 3 days and did what? Showed it to the disciples. I always like the fact that, but he showed it to, who was it? Was it Mary Magdalene that they removed him? She said, he's gone. She knew he was up. And the soldiers they were like, well, somebody came and stole the body. How could they? They couldn't move that stone. And the soldiers were on guard there. So he showed himself. Showed up in the upper room where the disciples were. Showed himself again to them out there catching fishing, and they ain't catching no fish. Kept showing himself. Showing himself. Here's Thomas. I ain't going to believe unless I feel the nail holes or the spirit place in the wound in his side. Oh, okay. If that's what you need to believe, here you go. I mean, you could go to Jesus. You know what? I'm not going to believe, man, unless I can feel who you are. Okay. You ever done that? Do that one day. You know what? I've been trying to believe. I've been trying to believe that I am the self, the one self, the Christ. I've been trying that as long as I have been trying to study this stuff. I know I've been saying stuff, but there's a part of me somewhere who's fighting it. I don't believe. And I know what parts I have problems with. I'm not going to believe this totally until I feel you as my life. He that asks, receives. Ask and it is given. That's exactly why I said, if I could make a wish, give me the Christ consciousness, the ability to feel that I am the divine self. I am the one. Let me feel that with confidence. Let me know this. And therefore, whatever is coming at me to say, you're sick, you don't feel well, you don't have enough money, those are just thoughts. Let me tell them goodbye. Let me tell them, be removed. I reject you. Why? Because a man's enemies are those of his own household. When I say that, I mean male and female. Your own household. What would be my enemies? The thoughts that I am entertaining that are not like God. That's what I'm entertaining. Those are the enemies of my own household. This is like, I want to finish with this. This was important to me. I went in my book, the Aramaic book, Let There Be Light by Rocco Ericko. And I looked up what a dream, a definition of a dream. Because I dream a lot. I really do. In fact, I dreamed last night that there was some problem I was dealing with, and I just said, well, you know what, I'm just going to forget about it. And I dreamed that I had this feeling on the inside that all was well. And in the dream, whatever I was dealing with, I can't remember all of the pieces of it, but it went away. I got up. I said, well, let me run in here and take a shower so I'll be straight, I'll be fresh, I'll be ready when I start the class. They were cutting my grass outside. So they're cutting the grass. And I'm like, man, here they are up in here, man. Here comes another problem. Now watch who creates this problem. I'm going to be on class, and they're going to, this is before they started cutting the grass. I heard them say, oh, no. They're going to be cutting the grass, and, man, the Bible study starts at 10 o'clock. Now, mind you, it is now 8:30. It takes them about 25 minutes to cut my grass. So why am I thinking about noise at 10 o'clock? It's 8:30. So then, you ready for the next problem? Here I've had this great dream that I had some kind of a problem I was dealing with, and I just let it go, and I just rejected the thought of a problem, and it all cleared up. Now here comes the next problem. They cut the grass. I got the check ready to hand them, and they leave and don't come to the door to get the check. What do you think the next problem was? They're going to come back here and be banging on the door, and I'm going to be in class, and I ain't going to want to go pay them, and I'm going through all of this. Then I stopped, and I said, you know what? I'm creating this problem. This is not my problem. If he does not want to get paid, that's on him. So I'm just going to let him go. And I sat down and I started doing something else, getting ready for the class. I don't know what I said. Well, let me go make me a cup of coffee and I'm going to chill. I ain't thinking about these folks no more. And I'm looking at it, and it's somewhere around 20 to 10. Because I pop it on at 1:45. And I'm sitting over here doing something. I hear tick, 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 and it's a knock on the door. I ain't even think about them no more. They knocking on the door. I went over there, and he started speaking to me, and it was broken English and Spanish. I said, excuse me, hold up, man. I don't know. I can't understand what you're saying, so slow down. He said something about payment. He was going on. I said, oh, it's cool. I had to check in my hand, so okay, here you go. I handed him the check. He moved on. And I said, see, what was all that who shot John about it 10 o'clock and him coming at the wrong time and this and all of that? That's what I'm talking about. You got to reject those thoughts. I had just had a dream that I had a problem, and I refused to deal with it, realizing that I am the one self, I am the one mind, and I am the one presence. I am the one power. There is nothing else. So, in dream, you know what the definition of a dream is in Aramaic? They thought that the dream meant hallowed. In other words, the word "et" comes from healing. They felt that if you dreamed, during that dream, you were healed of anything. I said, oh, wow. So then I thought, in Job, in a dream, in a vision of the night, when a man sleeps on his bed, I seal his instruction. Wow. So to sleep and dream from a positive standpoint means there's a healing going on. See, guess who was healed when he saw his wife at the bottom of the hill as pure light? Guess who was healed when he saw himself pull his wife up on top of this big rock that he was on and see her sit down? Who is healed when he sees his wife smile? Who is healed when he's in a dream? All these are dreams I've had about her. In other words, a dream, in its positive sense, is that which you are healed and instructed on how to deal with some so-called problem. That's it. So, it also says there is a spirit in man. The inspiration of the Almighty gives him life. Lillian DeWater said that she had a linden tree, and she loved that tree. I'm going to close with this. She had a linden tree, and that tree was, she just loved it. She went out one day, and all these bugs on it eating the leaves up and just destroying the tree. And she said, she sat down and she just said, this can't be true. She didn't know now. Well, watch this. This cannot be the truth because life would not destroy itself. That's where she's going with this. And she's going, life would not destroy itself. So that tree is life, and the bugs are life, and so God is all. So since God is all, this can't be the truth. She goes out the next day, and they still just eating away, tearing away the tree. Now watch this. She says, there must be something about my revelation that I didn't totally understand. So let me go back. See, that's what I'm saying. God, I know this is totally worked out, and I know you ain't fighting with no bugs. And I know you ain't fighting with no tree. You ain't fighting with no cancer. You're not fighting with all these little people, all these children. That just, that hits you so hard when you cut the TV on. You see these little kids with the bald heads and St. Jude's Hospital and Shriners Hospital. It's like, that ain't that. No. God, God, if God were in there, it'd been done. Wouldn't be no hospital for sick children. So she says, let me go back. There's something I didn't understand about this. She got quiet and she got still. And the voice within her said, those bugs have no life in them. They are of this world. That was that night. She got up the next morning when outside, all the bugs are laying down on the ground, dead. See, what happens when you totally understand that something is coming at you and you say, there's no life in that? See, when you start fighting with it, God is not going to destroy itself. God is not going to do this. God is not going to do that, and what have you. I'm not telling you that's wrong. That is right, but that may not be enough. But when you realize there is no life in cancer, it has no source. There is no life in any kind of disease, any kind of error. The biggest disease that people fight with, believe it or not, is poverty, lack, not having enough. There's no life in that. I am about my Father's business. Well, what business is that? The business of life, the business of success, the business of wholeness. That's why I said, make the wish. I don't know what yours is, but like I said, my wish is to experience the Christ consciousness, the mind that was in Christ Jesus, to know it, to live it, to express it, and to have it always as an experience. Like Kenny said, God, we're all having a God experience. It's just up to us to recognize. The goal is God realization. The purpose is the perfect expression of self. Speaking of dreams, I dreamed I saw my mother walking up some steps. She had on some white pants and a pink top. I looked up what the pink meant from a spiritual perspective. It meant the presence of God. I had a dream this week that I saw my mother-in-law. She was in her old house where Jamal lived, and she was hanging clothes up on a clothesline in the bathroom. And I'm like, why am I having this craziness? And it was, she didn't really like, she was old school. She didn't like taking clothes to the laundromat or or in a dryer in their house. He likes to have them hang up outside and have that fresh air dry them. I said, well, why is she in the bathroom? I said, well, what do you do in the bathroom? Mostly. Take showers. The bathroom is a space of cleanliness, which is godliness. What else is in the bathroom? Elimination. That's the big hitter that came from me. You eliminate in the bathroom. That's what we're doing. This whole world that we're looking out at every day ain't nothing but a huge garbage pit, a bathroom. And we have to eliminate all of the thoughts that come from what we are appearing to deal with. The only thing I'm dealing with is God, my divine self. That's where I'm going to be, and that's my take on it, and I'm sticking with it. I ain't never letting that go. Amen, and so it is.